Hello friends and welcome to 183 of the Noclip Crewcast. How are you all doing? Danny here, coming at you from beautiful North Kingstown, Rhode Island, where I am. I'm here. I flew here from the West Coast to escape the hellish heat that is now consuming Northern California. Jeremy Jane, I believe it's hitting 98 around where you are at the moment. How are you doing? You do look a little bit sweaty for our YouTube listeners.
Yeah, it's hot in here. My parents
take off all your clothes. You heard Nelly.
That instruction was life-saving advice for a heat wave, I believe. I think that's what that song was about. It's 90 degrees inside my house right now at noon in the middle of the day. So if I have an air conditioning coming today, I didn't. My parents begged me to order one last week, and I stubbornly was like, I like when it's hot, and now I don't like when it's hot anymore.
You fool!
I know. Always listen to your parents, folks. So if at any point in this episode I become like delirious and start rambling, that's why.
Jesse, you're obviously in Canada where it's always snowing, but you are also you always record in like a sort of a loft room. So is it sweaty up there? You gonna pass it?
We do have houses actually up here. It's not all igloos. Sometimes.
What?
Yeah, it's I'm in the attic. It's brutal. It's so hot up here all the time. I have one air conditioner here at my window, which I turn off when we're recording, which makes my life hell. And then I have another one in this room next to me that's like pushing in air. Luckily, I can noise gate that one. But man, if I don't have both of those on during the day, I'm done. It's so hot.
Wow. Summer Game Fest continues, Frank Howley. How are you doing down in SoCal?
I mean, like it's okay. It's 84 degrees, but I never leave my room, so my room is very protected. It's pretty. It's all right. I have a fan. I got my hug pillows and all my figures, so I'm okay.
Can you like fill them with like those like ice packs so you can.
Oh yeah,
you
can tuck them. I haven't tried that, but that'd be a very good idea. Oh my god. A pillow's always cool. Are the other side, so you just flip it. And then
when I was a child, when I was a kid, I invented a product when I was like 6 years old, and I was like, it's called the other side of the pillow, and it's a pillow that has like cooling gel inserts that you put in the freezer.
Whoa!
And you take them out and you put them in the center, but there's enough cushion between the inserts and where you lay your head that it still feels soft.
Wow, you got a Dragon's Den that shit.
I know. I'd probably have like $1 billion. I feel like that's the kind of shit they would sell in like a magazine that you read on an airplane, like a Sky Mall.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like the world of beds I'm always shocked about how there are so many brick and mortar stores that are just dedicated to beds. Like not even just I don't know. In the past, I imagined there was a furniture store and then there was a mattress store. But then there's places like Mancini's Sleep World that are just like, they'll sell you a pillow. They'll sell you a bed frame. They'll sell you a mattress. They're just there for you for whatever you need for the bed. The whole shebang. They got you. And then usually close enough to a Mancini's Sleep World, if you look over the hill, you can see a mattress firm. Just like, it's like there's like, every city has like its fucking bedroom sleep, not even bedroom, it's bed district. Like that's how much money there is in beds. Everyone needs a bed. It's genius.
It's true. Yeah,
it's brilliant. I always thought that, I feel like there was one in Berkeley where I used to live that was huge, and I always felt like it was a front because it was like what, you buy a mattress every 10 years and there's like 100,000 people in the city. I just can't imagine the revenue. I would like to see the books at Mancini's Sleep World. That's all I'm saying.
Right. They need all that space because they're selling beds.
Yeah, it's huge.
There's just too many of them.
Yeah, exactly. If they were selling books, it'd be a normal sized bookstore.
It's exactly, but they're not. They're selling massive pieces of timber, some of which, and then also you get to see like the fucked up ways people sleep, where you're like, why would you need that? Like, here's a mechanical bed that, like, those ones that like they used to have the daytime TV ads for, like, oh, you can it's all just for fucking, it's all common for us. It's all old people shit. It's all like, oh, I can't get out of bed properly, or I have sleep apnea and I need the bed to be this way so I don't drown in my own air, you know, or lack of air, I guess. I don't like all this stuff that's like cater made, but then some of them will have like, oh, you can bend up the mattress or the front on this side, but the other side's normal.
That sounds dangerous. I feel like all the blood would rush
sleep
your
number
head.
with your partner. You got to make sure you got it matched up. So yours is a 37, but she's sleeping on a 20, and you don't want to fuck it up for her.
You got to put that on your dating profile, like on dating apps. You're like, I'm a sleep number, and I'm a
sleep
65. I just want to make sure we're compatible. I know I'm getting ahead of myself here, but I just want to make sure that I'm not barking up the wrong tree.
Maybe Sleep Number should start their own dating app that just sections people off. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In that way.
That's great.
I always had these like nightmares of people having like, you know, especially one of those early mechanical beds, like before we figured it all out, where like one of them went up and then, you know, someone's arm like slipped underneath it during the nighttime. And then, you know what I mean? Like, and then it goes back, and yeah, it's just, I bet that happened to someone. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Probably.
Just got folded up by the bed.
Yeah, exactly. Think about all the beds, water beds.
Oh yeah,
you know,
I think
forgot
those are fake.
waterbeds.
That sounds made up.
You think they're fake if you never laid on
I know
one?
they're real and existed, but like, what was the point of that? Was that comfortable for anyone? Was that good?
I feel like it was a
like,
novelty. Like it was just to be like, it was the 1960s, and they like didn't have the internet, so they were like, let's just.
What do we do for fun?
What do we do
Just
for
put some
fun?
Water in a bed.
I don't know, man. Do you ever think about like, what if a mattress was water?
What if you wanted to throw up while you were sleeping? Have you ever tried that before?
You want to be seasick while you rest.
Yeah, exactly. Do you ever like go to sleep and wish you were on a tugboat?
All the time.
Like, I feel like that one scene in Edward Scissorhands has ruined waterbeds forever.
Yep.
So, you know what I mean? It's like just once. It does seem like you're sitting on just like an accident waiting to happen.
But is that a common occurrence for anyone, where your hands become scissors and you start stabbing your waterbed? Is that
All the time.
Is that so common as to be concerned for it?
That happened to my buddy Mike from high school.
Oh,
He was a scissorhand.
dude, Mike Scissorhand? Yeah.
Yeah, he's Mike Scissorhand.
You and him go
You
way
have
back.
to change your last name if you get that condition.
Yeah, it's like Jon Snow in Game of Thrones. It's like
Yeah.
if you're born a bastard, you have to go by snow or sand. And if you're born with scissor hands, you just have to tell people.
It's just a security risk, you know? Like, they just got to know when you're coming to the airport if you're a scissor hand, and, like, you know, they just got to get ready for you.
Yeah, exactly. Special gloves. I slept. It's even hot here in Rhode Island. I slept above the what do you call it? Sheets. See, I needed them so little that I decided to destroy the word from my brain. The word sheet.
Forgot
Something
what
I've
sheets
probably
were,
known.
man. I feel like
Sheets, I know.
I feel like the heat is probably getting to you too if you forgot what sheets are.
Well, you know, we're on the East Coast. I'm more of a Wawa guy. You know.
Ah, yeah. That's
There you go.
you're in Cumbies territory.
See
though.
that?
You're in
See
Cumbies
that?
territory.
Cumbies.
Cumbies.
Fucking
Yeah.
excuse me. There's a.
Yeah.
What did you? Cumbies.
Cumberland Farms,
What do you eat at Cumbies?
Cumberland Farms. People
Oh.
call it Cumbies.
Cumbies and Dunks.
I wouldn't call it that.
Dunks.
Cumbies and dunks. Fuck
Yeah.
off.
Cumbies just sounds like a bunch of like bees flying around, but instead of making honey, they're making ejaculate.
You ever think about that's
No.
what honey is?
Oh
Is that-
no,
There can't be.
no.
There cannot be any
Jesse.
scientific validity to that.
Jesse, please.
Google it. We're asking questions, folks. That's all we're doing.
Listen, listen. I feel like there are such things in this world as info hazards, and I just don't want to know. You know, like I'd rather ignorance is bliss sometimes.
Okay. You know the way Google does that thing now where it gets their stupid AI to answer the question wrong for you,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So I've started to ask Google like very leadingly stupid questions because I know that thing's gonna pop up. So I asked the question in an intentionally oblique manner just to see if I can make the AI look like a dumbass. I just typed is honey bees cum? The answer that Google's AI says is yes, honey bees have semen.
Okay, and
So-
it's honey.
So not what I was
So the
asking.
jury is still out on this one, I would say.
I don't know. Google said yes. Don't read the rest of it.
That's true.
Maybe I forgot to put the comma in. Bees. The ownership of the com was disputed by Google. A male drone will mount the queen and inject. No, that's not it either.
Oh boy. All right. Welcome to the biology episode of the Noclip podcast.
Oh
If anyone out there owns bees and knows, or just knows a lot about com, just let us know. Podcast at noclip.com. that video. Combies. I can't believe they call it that.
Combies.
Have we talked about Jack in the Box before? As a European, I find that
Speaking
name.
of combies.
Literally, I find that name to be like very weird for an establishment selling food. Jack in the Box. Like, I know what a Jack in the Box toy is.
Yeah.
But separated from that, it sounds like they're selling a box full of Jack off. Jack in the Box. No?
I feel like
I get
maybe
it.
it's so normalized that I've just been like, I've just been around it. I just picture a whimsical toy for children because I have a
Sure,
pure
but what does that
mind.
have to do with burgers?
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's always been the confusing thing for me. Is like, what is that? What they thought was in? Is that what I think a Jack is? They think that Jack is a burger. Like, what was that? The burger joint's name?
If I had to guess, I would say they just picked like at random.
like,
They were
whatever.
just like, what's
People-
something inoffensive that we can call our restaurant, and then
Right,
they ended
fair.
up with Jack in the Box. So I guess it all
Jack in the
backfired.
Box.
Yeah.
We should. I mean, in America, you've got a cheese that people just call Jack cheese, which I also find very, I guess if honey is bees cum, then maybe all dairy product is I don't know. Is that
Oh
cows?
fuck, we're going into the
Goats.
Matrix. We got to be careful. You're gonna have
Yeah.
big milk knocking on your door.
A
Better settle
bullet,
down.
a bullet made of frozen milk is going to shoot through your
That's
head.
right. You're too close to Wisconsin.
That's how they get you. There's no
trace.
there was no bullet. There's no
Yeah.
trace, sir.
There was an
They did
exit
it.
wound, but there was no bullet on the scene.
Get the Mythbusters.
Just a little bit of milk that got spilled on the ground. No one knows what happened.
I might have heat stroke. That might be what's going on. And perhaps it's fitting that many of the games today are bringing the heat. We're going to talk about Children of the Sun, NASCAR Heat 5,
What?
Kingdom Hearts, Leap Year, and Street Uni X. But first of all, a massive thanks to all of our incredible sleep number buddies, Eamon Slattery, Harry Flanagan, Battle Royale Games, Arno, Richard Matherson, James Brown, Mark Rojas, Ryan Cobb. Sorry, I said your name weird, Ryan, but that's the heat stroke. Tucker Morgan, Crimson Cyclist, Sven Huster, Pez, Uint Nate, Tim Robinson, Forrest Pruitt, Jonathan Kremen, Eric Hamilton Schneider, Hammerlaid, Zachary Snader, Alex Sharp, Alex Couchet, George Sakotis, Jacob Godserve, Tohir Tiliev, and of course Ryson. Thank you to you and all of our patrons. We're working on lots of stuff. I'm on I don't know what to call it, a workcation. I'm over here filming a bunch of stuff and also seeing family and whatnot. And thanks to all of you, we're able to do that. And also all the work that's happening back at the many HQs that we have. We've lots of docs just about ready to come out. So we'll talk about some more of them at the end of the podcast. First of all, though, let's talk about some of these video games. Jesse Garasha, why don't you go first? Children of the Sun. So this was was this a Steam Next Fest demo back in February?
It was, yeah. I included it in the video that I made of like the top 10 from that event. This one's published by Devolver Digital, developed by, apologies if I butcher your name, Renee Rother. I'm not sure. But it's a third-person, like arena-based puzzle shooter. So basically, you're playing as this. I don't want to say school shooter chic style character, but that is kind of what they look like. It sort of looks like Johnny the Homicidal Maniac turned into a video game. Like that's the immediate thought I had while playing it. But this came out, not too long ago. It came out in April, so actually a while ago. And I didn't pick it up at the time. It just skipped over my brain, and it's the Steam Next Fest, or not Steam Next Fest, that was weeks ago. It's currently the summer sale, which is probably still going if you're listening to this when it comes out. And I was like, hey, what did I miss from the year that I haven't picked up? And this was one of them. I was really excited for it when I played the demo, and I'm really enjoying it now. It's the same thing, it turns out, just with more performance improvements and more game. It's nice. So yeah, it plays like a puzzle arena shooter. Basically, it's a bunch of individual levels where you're playing, again, third-person shooter, and it's sort of in two phases. The first phase of the game, you're playing this like Metal Gear Solid Far Cry arena scouting gameplay style where you zoom into your scope and you tag all of the enemies in this area. You're trying to find all these enemies to shoot.
It might be important to preface this by saying it's not a third-person game in that you can walk around. You're literally, your character is stuck in a circle around the arena. Is that right? And there are like fixed places where they stop. So
Yeah,
there's
it's
like,
sort of like you're on a fixed track around the arena, like you're on a dolly almost. You can't move forward or backward, and that is part of the puzzle as well, is some of the arenas have like a wall in front of the path that you can move along. So you can only see so much, and you have to find the other enemies in the midst of things. So sometimes you'll have to do a puzzle more than once to find all of the enemies. But so that's the first phase, is just tracking everyone. And then the second phase is after you shoot, you only have one bullet to nail all of the enemies. And when you shoot and you connect the shot with an enemy, you get to redirect the bullet like you're psychically controlling it. It's really cool. It's a lot of like bouncing between enemies and exploding them into human goo. And it's not just enemies that you're hitting. You can shoot like gas tanks on cars to cause big explosions. And it is a score-based thing, so there's leaderboards, so I'm all about that. There's individual challenges too for each of the levels, which is really cool. Like there's a one where you have to shoot through fire, and like it's a little cryptic. It's a bit of a riddle, but when you get it, you get extra points. It feels really cool. I think overall, I really like the gameplay of it, but it's also, I've seen a lot of comments regarding the game as being like hyper violent or feeling like uncomfortable to play, which I don't necessarily. Yes, yeah, I don't.
Violence.
You're shooting people. Like maybe it should be a little uncomfortable. But it's also like 50%. I'm like, it's uncomfortable. I think because it's the aesthetic. It's very grimy. The game is very like dark and purple, and you're shooting cult members. You have like this mask that you can take on and off. You don't really like zoom in on the character or anything, but you can take it on and off, and it looks like horrifying. The first thing you see when you launch the game, by the way, before you start playing, is your player character on the menu screen with the options in front of you. You hit start journey, and then he licks the gun, like very suggestively. It's incredibly horny for violence, the whole game, which I don't know if it's necessarily a comment on people who like doing score attack violent video games like me, but also maybe it is. I'm not sure. I haven't finished it, so I'm not sure what entirely the plot is going for. But where I'm at right now, it's just a ton of fun to play. It's great to see the puzzles play out and like track your paths, and I don't know. It takes me back to playing games like Bulletstorm, where you shoot your bullet and you're like across a whole map and just darting someone in the back of the head. It's both examining the violence and also making it really cool. It's having its cake and eating it too. Yeah. It's nice. I like it.
Yeah, cool. It looks interesting. I played the Next Best demo and I really liked it, and then I think I mustn't have added it on the wish list because it's not popped up for me yet, but I kind of forgotten about it. So yeah, thanks for the reminder. It's how tricky is it? Like, because I know the early levels that I played, I only played like 3 or 4 of the demo levels maybe, and then was like, oh, I'll play this, and then stopped. How many times do you find yourself going through it? Because also, does something happen? Like, do people move every time the bullet moves? Like, do they step forward or something?
Yeah, it's a little like reverse super hot. Everyone moves when you're not moving, basically, right? Like, so after you hit an enemy, you can scare nearby enemies, like people who are close to the one that you shot. It's a pretty short range, so it's not like when you shoot someone, everyone in the whole map starts moving. I think they'll make the puzzles a little too challenging, but there are some where you need to keep track of things. And that is another part of the mechanics, too. After you redirect the bullet, you can sort of like aim it a little bit, because once you pick a direction, it goes in that direction until it hits something. But you can sort of slightly angle it a little bit just to make up and compensate for maybe a little inaccuracy, or like you said, if an enemy's moving. I don't find myself repeating levels too often. There's maybe like 1 or 2 times where I miss a shot because somebody moved, or I didn't exactly hit the gas tank I was trying to hit, and I just hit the side of the car and it didn't go off. But the harder part, I feel like, is just trying to find everyone on the map. Is like, because they're glowing in yellow, but there's like fire coming off of stuff. It's almost monochromatic, or because it's purple and then yellow, but then like there's a couple other things like red or like the fire, like I said. So it's just finding all of the enemies. They tell you how many there are. Like in the top right corner, there's a number, so you know how many to look for. But there's still that challenge of trying to find everything. And then once you've found them all, it's mostly just completing the path and finding the best way to do it to get the most points.
How narrative heavy is this game? Is it like, does it feel more like a Neon White where you're kind of just doing levels a la carte, or does there? Well, I guess Neon White had a story.
I was going to say,
I just skipped the whole thing. Now it's coming back to me.
Like, there's no narrative in Neon White. What do you mean?
Yeah.
Just hold
not
F
for
a
me,
bunch.
not for this guy.
It's not like huge on the narrative. It has a couple of cutscenes that I've played so far they kind of look like a color version of Johnny the Homicidal Maniac, the comic, that are giving you an idea of what the cult is, maybe who you are, why you're shooting them, stuff like that. There's no narrative. It's all just told through pictures and flashy cuts and everything. So
Cool.
It's light on the narrative. It's a lot more focused on the puzzle shooting mechanics. I will say there are also some, these weren't in the demo, there are some like middle non-human violent missions. Like there are some stages that are like, one of them really early on is you're just shooting like animals. Like there's ducks in the sky and they're on fire, and there's fish in the water and you shoot the fish in the water, and it's like, all right, sure. There's other moments too that lead into what I was saying about the horny for violence stuff. But I think this is one of those games where it's like, yeah, this is what I remember Devolver Digital publishing like 8 years ago. This is what I used to think of them for. So it's cool to see them go back to that. And this is a really like singular video game at this point in time. It feels like you don't see a lot of this weird, uncomfortably violent but also well-designed video games.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's funny because like I don't like games where you have to like hurt animals like that. I was like, oh, but at the same time, it's like the fact that I'm having that reaction. I like when games push you and do like weird shit and are kind of like, I don't know, like sometimes I feel like a game that I really like will be like, I wish this took a little more risks and like made me a little more uncomfortable. And like, I don't know, sometimes when I read like a really good, like when I read Blood Meridian, there were so many times where I was like, I'm so fucking uncomfortable right now. And that's so, it's interesting. Like, it's like, I don't know. I don't want art to just comfort me. Sometimes I want to be like, wow, that's fucked up. It's crazy that someone thought of that and put it down on paper. So the fact that this game is a little disturbing actually makes me more interested in it.
Yeah.
Children. Oh, sorry. Anything else on it?
Oh, I was just gonna say, when I was thinking of playing at the start of Children of the Sun, I was like, man, this kind of reminds me of like Hatred when that game came out. I don't know if you guys remember that one.
Oh no! Don't reduce it to hatred, please.
It's not. See, that's why I was gonna clarify what I'm saying. It's not like that. But it does give me that same sense of like this is trying to do something with the violence, right? I feel like it's achieving
glorifying violence. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's what Hatred was doing. Yeah. Yeah. It's like, what if Postal had like no sense of humor, right? Exactly, Children of the Sun is more like trying to say something with its violence, I feel like. I don't know. I haven't seen the end of the narrative, but so far I'm like, yeah, okay, I get what is trying to be represented here. So I was like, man, it just reminded me that hatred exists. It doesn't remind me of hatred, to be clear.
Good. Children of the Sun, available on Steam. A little bit of a 20% off, as Jesse was saying. But it's not the biggest game in the world. It's a $15 game when it's full price. So it's not like a big AAA situation. It's check out the trailers and stuff. I feel like it is kind of a tricky game to maybe explain. You did a great job with though, and super graphics as well that are worth checking out. Love the key art as well. Mm-hmm. Whoever's doing all that key art for Devolver or just the indie game scene is absolutely killing it. Speaking of, Street Uni X came out just last week. This is, what are we looking at, Frank? It's basically Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, but with a unicycle. Is that what it is?
Yeah, it is like a dead-on like Tony Hawk Pro Skater homage, like completely done in the PS1 style. It's unicycle instead of skateboards or BMX, but it plays like exactly like all those Activision games or the Neversoft games. It more specifically plays like Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 2, where like you can do manuals, but there's not like reverts, so it's like that. This is a project I've been following for like years on Itch.io, and I'm impressed I found out about it because like I think I bookmarked it on Itch.io, and then when it released, I got like an email that was like, hey, this is finally out. And so I immediately grabbed it, and I played it over the weekend, and like I was just super charmed by it. I mean, even when you boot it up, it has like a mock PlayStation, like the original like Sony and PlayStation openings. Like there's a lot of like CRT filters and stuff. One of the biggest elements I really loved and got me nostalgic about it is the soundtrack. I think is all Canadian like indie punk bands. Like this game was made in Vancouver, and there's a band I love that I saw live like 5 years ago called Necking, which is like a Riot Girl punk band, and they're in this game, and it just unlocked all these memories of seeing like all these punk shows and stuff, and like it got me to add like a few other bands to my Apple Music stuff. So it's like exactly like a Tony Hawk game. Tony Hawk exposed me to so many cool bands, and so it's rad that like this game is made with so much love, like not just for the Tony Hawk series, but like also just punk music in general. And it's like, it's so hyper like into my zone. The game itself plays well like Tony Hawk, where it's like, it kind of has the difficulty of those first Tony Hawk games where it's like, as you're playing through, you can't increase your stats. Like the cyclist, the I just always say skater, the person you pick. That's their stats for the rest of the thing. So it's like you kind of have to really nail like the jumping, the rhythm, and everything. But it plays like a PS1 Tony Hawk game. There's the button mapping is a little different. Like you press Y to do like a equivalent of a manual for a unicycle. And then even grinding is very specific. You have to hit like L1 to grind on the left side, R1 to grind on the right. So you have to think a little bit more compared to like your muscle memory for Tony Hawk. But all the levels are the goals. It has like instead of collect skate, collect trick, high score. Instead of a secret tape, you have to find like it's the Wi-Fi signal for every level, and it's just really charming. So I feel like every few months there'll be like a skater or an extreme sports game, and I'll try every one, and some completely miss the mark, some are pretty close. Like last year, the Jet Set Radio Bomb Rush Cyberpunk was like one of my favorite games of the year. Roller Drome was pretty badass. So it's like every few months there's or once a year at least, there's a pretty good, skate homage game. But yeah, Street Uni X is great. And then a big plus, works perfectly on Steam Deck. This might be like best on Steam Deck because you can boot it up and try to do a few goals. And it's got the old school Tony Hawk progression, which is like do one career, boom, you unlock a secret skater. Do them again, you might get another skater and more. And
About the skaters,
Yes.
one of the things that I find fascinating about this project is the fact that it is taking the sport of unicyclists or unicycling 100% sincerely and seriously.
Oh, yeah.
Like in the same way that Tony Hawk's obviously was and Dave Mirra was and all that sort of stuff. So they have like real pro unicyclists you pick from, and like the moves are all real, and even like I was put aback by the trailer they made for this is like remarkably
Such a good
well
trailer.
produced.
It's really good.
Holy
It's
shit.
so well produced. That's cool. I think it's worth mentioning just because like I can totally see how there's a lot of like joke retro throwback games, but this game is a retro throwback, but it's not like. This isn't just like saying, oh, wouldn't it be fun if we did this, but unicycling? It's like, oh no, actually, this is a super difficult hardcore sport. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah, I think the developer themselves are also a unicyclist, and I think that's the person in the trailer. So it's just very authentic, and that's the thing. Goes back to the music and everything. It's like, oh, this is actually real, and from the way it plays, the also like the last note is like every level in this you can tell exactly what Tony Hawk level they're going for, like so it's just like very charming. So like the first level is very similar to like Hangar from THPS2, and the second level is very much like it's Vancouver but it's Manhattan THPS2 with the subway and everything. So it's just
Any
like
downhill jam kind of looking ones.
No, none of those linear type levels. Although that would
Okay.
be funny. I think they posted on the Steam thing like. It's not. It's released as a full game, but who knows if they may make more levels or anything like that. But yeah, Street Uni X. I was very happy that they nailed it, and yeah, it was a good time. And again, just also discovering more weird Canadian punk bands is always a plus too. So
Yeah,
I really liked it.
That's what I was gonna say. Is I remember as a kid playing the original Tony Hawk, and like some of those bands I knew, some of them I'd never heard of, but it exposed me to so much music that I feel like a huge part of the Tony Hawk experience wasn't just that it was fun and about skateboarding and about skateboarding culture, but also about like music and like specifically punk
Absolutely.
music. And it set me down this track of like it really shaped my taste very early on. So it's cool that not only are they doing kind of like an homage to that by having a bunch of punk music, but also servicing a bunch of bands that I haven't looked at the track list, but presumably it's a bunch of Canadian punk bands that I wouldn't know. So I think it's cool when games do that. I think games are like I think it's interesting when they take the opportunity to tap into other mediums and kind of like use games as this next, because one of the most interesting things about games is that it's like you need visual artists, you need musicians, you need coders, you need like it's so multidisciplinary that I think it's an interesting element of the Tony Hawk games and of sorry, what is the name of this game? I keep saying it wrong. Street Uni X. I keep wanting to say Skate Uni X. I keep thinking of skateboarding, but regardless, yeah, no, it's cool that they're taking the opportunity to surface these bands.
What's this screenshot I'm looking at where it looks like they're using a sidekick as a camera or something?
Oh yeah, so similar to like Tony Hawk Underground, or whatever. The whole game's presentation is through like you're getting like text messages on a sidekick. So I think when it shows the goals, it opens up and it's like, collect the skate letters, collect this. It's through the lens of a sidekick. You'll get text messages of like, hey, you just unlocked a secret trick. So it's again every detail. It's like it's very Y2K inspired, and even the tutorial is a very like Metal Gear VR missions. Like even
you're
Cyberpunk
kidding,
has that
really?
same tutorial. You're in like the grid learning how to unicycle, and it's just every element's charming. They nailed it.
Excellent. Street Uni X available. It seems like only on PC at the moment. For $19.99. There's also a demo you can download. So if you want a little flavor of it, I mean, that also feels like it's very much in the spirit of early Tony Hawk's games. Is get the demo out there and make sure everyone can enjoy some. I still remember Tony Hawk Pro Skater 2. It was Marseille, I think it was the level.
Oh yeah, yep.
For the demo, yeah. Pretty good stuff. Street Uni X, bringing it. I want to briefly talk about NASCAR Heat 5. As you know, I've been enjoying some NASCAR over the past few years. Went camping there at Sonoma this past summer, and when I was on that flight and playing the game Jesse recommended, which I will always forget its name,
Tiny Terry's Turbo Trip.
There we go. Thank you. 4T. I was like, and that game is a game that is like not really about driving. Like you drive a bit, but it's mostly like a platforming game. But I was thinking like, games where you're driving are like a good one for me on an airplane, because I don't know, there's such a deep amount of focus in a driving game. And I tend to play driving games on my like sim setup at home. I play F1 and stuff like that. I don't really like a lot of arcade racing. But I decided to give NASCAR Heat a go, because I was like, well, that's, it's somewhat arcadey, but it's probably not that simmy, because I remember people, sort of NASCAR fans, complaining a little bit about those games. And I really enjoyed it. I played it for the entire flight here. I played it for like maybe 4 hours straight. I won my division. You start off like racing in like little dirt tracks, kind of like that is in my town of Petaluma. You're doing truck racing. If you get like, brought up to the big leagues, then you eventually get in like the Xfinity series, and then you get in the NASCAR Cup series. You kind of make your way up. The controls were like super. I guess the way they handle it is they have a lot of different assists that you can turn on and off, and if you turn them off, then the cars can go faster. But obviously the controls a little bit different. And I thought it was like, for a racing game, actually the sweet spot for me of like, this is challenging, but I think I'm doing well. And I actually won the championship on the second last lap of the season. I got into the cup barely. I was doing really well, but I hadn't won a race yet to qualify, because the way they do semifinals and finals in NASCAR is super weird to me. They have it like a tournament, which is weird, because American sports don't ever use tournaments, it seems. But for instance, in Europe, like leagues and stuff, they do tournaments all the time. Whereas this is not knockout. This was like, anyway, it's weird to me. But anyway, it was like the second last lap I managed to overtake somebody and just about stick it to win the championship. And I'm having a blast with it. The reason why I bring it up is because this game came out in, like, I think it was 2021 maybe, or 2020. And there hasn't been a NASCAR game since. And the reason for that is because the developers behind iRacing, I'm not sure if you guys have ever done iRacing before, but it's basically sort of... Yeah, it's like super simmy kind of, I would liken it to almost like an open source community, because people add their own cars, they add their own tracks to it. It's, there's loads of different types of racing in it as a result. It's sort of like this modular mod community type thing. And a lot of esports obviously happen through iRacing as well. It's sort of like the de facto racing thing. Really? The iRacing devs got the rights to NASCAR, I think it was last year maybe. And they're working on a NASCAR game that's, I believe, coming out in the fall of 2025. So it'll have been almost 5 years between NASCAR games. And what it was reminding me of was the thing that came up in our NHL doc a little bit, Jeremy, when we interviewed the guys who were working on the current NHL games. It's like, there are some sports that just don't have as big penetration when it comes to just, people watching it. And then that obviously has an effect on the amount of people who are willing to buy a video game about it, especially when it comes to like the demographics of the sport, perhaps. And I remember talking to the NHL guys, and it was interesting being like, oh yeah, like, you're not going to get the same resources as the NBA 2K people or the FIFA people, or like even now the F1 people, because F1 has like blown up, definitely Madden, all these big sports. And this sort of frustrating position that some of these people the fans of these sports end up being in, because I'm sure there's like young NASCAR fans would love to have a really great NASCAR game, but the studios just can't afford to put all that much into it. And I've been enjoying playing NASCAR Heat. I think for me, it was a perfect, what I needed of not particularly simmy, but not, overly arcadey. But like, yeah, there was loads of stuff missing. If you're a NASCAR fan, like there's loads of elements of races that just aren't in here. But it was reminding me of that, and also how lucky I am as an F1 fan that the F1 games now are really big and well funded, because there was a long time there when F1 wasn't particularly popular that those games were kind of like what NASCAR Heat is now.
Let me ask you a question that is more about racing, but I feel like I feel like it ties into the game design of this game. Because you're such an F1 fan, and what is it that what do you like about NASCAR that F1 doesn't offer, I guess is my question.
F1 is so technical. It's like F1 is more, so F1, like all racing is basically a race between you and the circuit. It's about, like, if you're not into motorsports and you look at racing, you think about games like Mario Kart, right? And it's all about, going as fast as you can, I guess, or there's combat elements to those games. But when you like, the thing about F1, if you watch it as a spectator, or if you get into it, or if you're playing it as a game, is that it's about like very specific approaches to turns, based on not just the turn or the power of the car, but the weather, the wind, how old your tires are. There's all these very particular things. So there's like an invisible dance that you're watching all the time. And it's somewhat complex. And then when you add that into a racing scenario, you have all the individual issues that the driver and their car are going through. And then you have the car that they're coming up behind, and what issues do they have, and what's the sort of marriage of the two of them. And because F1, especially when you play the games, and when you're playing the F1 games, it's basically all about lap mastery. It's all about like just making sure that you hit the apex at the right point, that your gear shifting is at the right point. That's why I like playing them on sims, because it's not as fun arcade F1 games. You can't even. The big problem is with analog sticks. It's very difficult to like half turn. Like so you end up doing that a lot, where you turn 90 degrees and then reset, turn 90 degrees, reset, which is not ideal. And the other issue is, especially in F1, is throttle control. Is when you're driving a road car and being able to have like from 0 RPM up to whatever your peak pedal to the metal is, like you have all that give. And on some of the better controllers, you can do that. Like on the Xbox, controllers now, and the Pro ones, you have a bit of give on the back sticks. But like on my Steam Deck, I don't really. You know what I mean? So that's not there. So that's the technical joy of playing an F1 game for me, is having is dealing with traction and dealing with stuff like that, which has all got to do with where the wheels are pointing and how much gas you're giving. The fun thing about NASCAR is using other cars as fucking like turning aids, right? Just throwing the car, like you're drifting more. You're doing a lot of this shit where the wheel is going like left, right, all over the place, which doesn't happen as much in F1. And using other cars basically to either draft or throw yourself into and almost use them to get around a corner. Stuff you'd never do in F1 because your tire would puncture, your front wing would pop off. Like the cars just aren't built that way. Whereas in F1 they are. Like rubbing is racing, or in NASCAR, rubbing is racing. Like in trucks, all the Sprinter series, all that stuff. You can be more physical. So it's less about that. It's more about like, trying to pick the right angle and stuff like that. It's fun.
That's interesting. I never. It's funny that you're not from America, and NASCAR is like the most American sport in my mind. Yeah. So I feel like it's like, I don't know. I feel like I never appreciated it because I always kind of just. I mean, I'm not super into racing in general, but I never had like really considered what it is about NASCAR that was interesting from like a fundamental mechanical perspective. I was just like, oh, yeah, the cars, they drive around and it's like cool. But so
sometimes there's a crash.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Exactly. That's when people hear about it and stuff. I'll say like that's the game. The sport itself, what I find interesting about NASCAR is more similar to F1, where it's about like tire wear and fuel and pit strategy and stuff like that. But the one thing I find really crazy about NASCAR in particular is that some of it's on ovals, some of it's on circuits, which are two completely different types of racing. So you need to be able to work on be able to do oval driving, which is just like nuts. It's all about aerodynamics and getting a toe behind somebody else, and like you never hit the brake pedal. Like you're basically on the gas all the fucking time, and then trying to it's almost like the Dark Souls of racing, because it's just this one thing, but you have to be so good at it.
Yeah,
Right.
I brought up Dark Souls.
No, that's awesome.
So there's all that, and then so they have to be good at that. Then they have to be good at circuit racing, which is a completely different discipline. And then sometimes you get something called a roval, which is an oval and a racetrack stuck together. So it's like an oval for some of it, and then it turns into a little circuit, and then it's on an oval. And then you get weird ones like Pocono, the tricky triangle as they call it, which is not an oval, but like is basically a triangle with like three oval shaped turns on it. So just you have to be able to do like loads of different types of racing in NASCAR, and some people are really good at circuits and bad at ovals, and vice versa. And it's very funny because like some people are just like useless, like they don't even turn up. That happens in India a lot more actually, because they have the same problem. They do a lot of that as well.
And sometimes you get hit with a blue shell, and it's like you're in first, and it's like, maybe I should be in second for like most of the race.
Sometimes they just punch each other. They get in fights. Sometimes they, cars flip, and
the cars can talk. They have eyes and mouths, and
they do.
That is a documentary, right? Pixar's Cars.
Cars, yeah, it's good.
That's cool. Thank you for. I feel like that was enlightening for me. Every time you talk about F1, like there was a moment where you told me about F1 on a trip we were on, and like explained to me why it was interesting and stuff. And it was like a light switch moment for me, where I was like, oh, okay, you're not just like driving really fast. There's like a whole technical world to this. So
every sport is interesting. Like it mightn't be interesting to you,
right?
But every sport is interesting. It's just sometimes you have to find, like, some sports are very obviously interesting. Like soccer, I think, is or rugby. Rugby to me is the one where you don't even have to know the rules of rugby, and you can sit down and watch rugby because you're like, this is fucking crazy. This is just like a dozen dudes wrestling a dozen other dudes for a ball. Like it's just like it looks fucking mental. But then you have games like baseball where you're like, what's going on? This looks boring. But, I feel like every sport, figure skating, unicycling, you just need to know enough about it. Like you need someone to sit down with you, and it might never be for you, but like every sport's interesting. Totally. It wouldn't exist. You know what I mean? Like video games come and go every couple of years. These sports have been around for centuries. So like there must be something there,
Yeah.
NASCAR's not been around for centuries.
They were driving
something about cars that we don't
muscle
know?
cars in the 1600s. You don't remember?
I mean,
that?
they had chariot racing. I feel like chariot racing is sort of the
Good
predecessor.
That's an oval.
Yep.
Right.
There you go.
The Parthenon or whatever it was. Or,
people
or
in the
Circus
stands
Maximus.
like, yeah, Leonidas, get him.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
The horses explode.
And somebody takes out a Confederate flag, and they're like, "No, stop it!
No, put that one away."
You're making
Do
a
you know
sport
you weren't
with
allowed
that.
to have those?
Say again?
When I was
Really?
camping. Did I tell you that?
No.
Yeah, one of the rules when I was
wild.
camping in NASCAR was they were like, no Confederate flags. It literally said no Confederate. It wasn't even like no political flags. It was like no Confederate flags.
I feel like it probably is obvious. I mean, there's obvious reasons, but I feel like the reason that would become a rule is because it's like it probably reflects really poorly. They're like, listen, NASCAR already has a reputation for being like rednecky.
I mean, Talladega Nights already tanked their reputation, and then you have the rest of the fans bringing the Confederate flag, and it's like, oh, geez, what do we do? Do we have anything going for us anymore?
Yeah, you should. A great double header for a movie night is Talladega Nights, which is absolutely fucking hilarious.
Hilarious movie.
And what is the name of that one? There's a heist movie starring Channing Tatum and
Is it Logan Lucky?
Logan Lucky.
Yeah.
Logan Lucky is it was one of those like Netflix, I'll watch it, I've got nothing to watch tonight. It's fucking brilliant. I think did
James
Michael
Bond
Mann direct it or someone?
Sodenberg.
There you go. That's
Ocean's
why.
11. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I've
So
seen
Steven
this
Soderbergh.
movie. I've seen this movie.
Yeah.
I watched this. I didn't ring a bell at all. I watched this with like friends for a movie night one time. I've totally seen this. This is a good movie.
It is a good movie, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
It's
Adam
really
Driver,
well written.
Daniel
It's really well
Craig.
shot. And what's his face is in it? The guy
Craig?
from Marriage Story.
Oh,
Adam
Driver.
Adam Driver's in it. It's got a ridiculously good cast. Yeah.
Adam Driver.
Oh shit! You think that's why they
No,
put him
he
in
was
there?
also in. Dude, he was in Ferrari. He played Enzo.
Oh my
Ferrari
god,
in the
dude!
Ferrari
It's like
movie.
he's getting typecast.
Exactly. So anyway, there you go. NASCAR Heat 5. I don't know if you should buy it. It was fun if you're bored on an airplane.
70% off on Steam. $5.
Nice.
Oh, it is. That's probably why I got it actually.
Yeah.
It is. That's why. And I also picked up Shadow of War for $1.99.
Oh my God.
You got
I
it for
know.
exactly how much you should have paid.
Oh, really? Is it not great?
Burn. No, it's all right.
Oh,
It's fine.
shit.
Just when it came out, it had a bunch of season pass mag. I'm being an annoying gamer. Sorry, it's a good game. Enjoy. It's fun.
Hey, $1.99, right? For a Nemesis
Yeah, can't
system?
beat it.
I'll take it. Speaking of sports that have been around for thousands of years, Jeremy Jane, you finally got around to playing Kingdom Hearts.
I did.
How's that been?
When I checked the fucking podcast doc and I saw Jeremy Jane playing Kingdom Hearts, I thought I was having a stroke. I could not believe. Why are you playing this? What happened?
That's a good question. So why am I playing this? So, my girlfriend and I live far apart, and we do like a regular date night where one of us will play a video game and stream it to the other. And it's mostly just like we're just hanging out, and one of us is playing a game. It's just fun to watch. And so, she grew up playing Kingdom Hearts. I have never played Kingdom Hearts, but I'm a diehard OG SquareSoft fan, pre-Square Enix. So I was
And
like,
you're a considerate partner.
and I'm just a good ass boyfriend. Really, that's the overriding thing here. So no, I was just genuinely curious about this. So I was like, what if we played Kingdom Hearts? And she was like, do you have heat stroke? Is there something? Do I need to like call
We're
the
all
paramedics?
confused by this option.
So I've just been curious about it. I mean, people who like Kingdom Hearts are so diehard about it, and I really like SquareSoft. So I just genuinely wanted to know like what was there. I don't know if I'll play the whole thing or anything, but I just kind of needed to play like a few hours.
Quick question.
Yeah.
How do you feel about Disney?
Mixed feelings. I think. I mean, the thing is
Or
that
DreamWorks kid, big Shrek guy.
no. What do you think? What kind of kid is a DreamWorks kid, man?
Oh my god.
I
That's great.
liked Disney a lot growing up. A lot of the Disney characters that are in Kingdom Hearts 1 that I've seen so far are like classic Disney characters. And so they evoke the era of Disney that is actually nostalgic for me. Like you, in the first hour, 2 hours or whatever, you see, there's like the Alice in Wonderland land is kind of like one of the first biomes. And there's kind of like a shadowy reveal of like all the different villains conspiring. And if you've ever seen a Disney movie, you can recognize them all immediately, even though they're like in shadow. Cause it's like Hades and Jafar and like Oogie Boogie and stuff. So immediately I was like, oh, this is like, I think of myself as someone who really dislikes Disney, but then when I think about like those classic Disney movies, like I rewatched Hercules, 3 years ago or whatever. It's a great movie. Like some of those old movies are really, really good and like legitimately pretty timeless. So yeah, I think the thing, I mean, Kingdom Hearts is a game that's been discussed to death, but the thing that I wanted to bring up about it that I found so interesting is that, because this is a Squaresoft game from 2001, 2002, like less than a year before the Square Enix merger, it does have like a shocking amount of that like golden age Squaresoft sauce to it. Like, and the thing that struck me so much is how much, I've talked about this before on the podcast, but one of the things I really like in a good RPG is obviously really strong characters, but not only like strong characters in the way that like literary characters can be strong. I feel like RPG characters need to be like characters and areas need like strong theming. Like they need to be like almost a little over the top in order for like Super Mario RPG is the thing I always evoke because it's like there's like Monster Town and it's like, oh, that's the town where all the monsters live. And that's just like it's such an immediately grokkable idea that it's like sometimes I play something that's a little drier like Suikoden 2 and I just walk into a village and they're like, welcome to our village. And I'm like, do you guys have like a gimmick? Is this like
What's your bit?
Yeah,
what do you guys
come
sell?
on.
What's your export?
Yeah, is this like Volcano Village? Is this like Monster Village? Like come on.
You guys make bread?
Yeah,
Have a
like
thing.
you can't just be a village, dude. Like what's
Pick an industry.
Yeah, exactly. Pick a fucking lane. So I was shocked playing this how much I was like, oh fuck, it's like the incredibly over the top characters and I want to say biomes. I don't think there are biomes in Disney movies, but like like Alice in Wonderland. It's like fucking. There's like
Themes.
Yeah, themes. Yeah, I guess is the thing.
Olympus is my favorite biome.
It's my favorite biome
canon.
is Wonderland. I just feel
what's the biome that Big Thunder Mountain is in?
Yeah,
That's my favorite.
Yeah, exactly. You get the map of all the
Adventureland.
biomes when you go. Epcot is my favorite biome. Yeah, so I was just shocked how much crossover there was, like what a natural fit it was to have this like oh, we're going to like this Disney place, this Disney movie, this Disney zone, and the characters are like, you know, like when you play Super Mario RPG or whatever. Again, Squaresoft from like 4 years prior to this game, like Mallow is such a good character because he's such a crybaby. He's so sensitive, but then he's like, I'm gonna be strong. Actually, I'm gonna stop crying, and you're like, that's like a wacky, over the top character. Like I understand that character. Or Gino is like the stoic, like interdimensional warrior who's inhabiting a doll. That's a crazy fucking character. And then when you get into this game and it's like Goofy and Donald Duck, it's like those are such tangible characters that it's like they you know exactly, you can recognize them from like, you could hear one like in the distance and you're like, I know exactly who that fucker is and like what he stands for. So yeah, there's something about like strong theming and like readability of characteristics and zones is just like, it's bizarre how much Disney and RPGs have in common. So this was an interesting experience for me. I don't know if I'll finish it. I think it's kind of hard. Jesse, you've played this game, right?
Yeah. I've been a Kingdom Hearts fan basically my whole life. I still remember the first time my friend Jasper introduced it to me in his bedroom when we were just hanging out at like about 10 years old. He started playing the intro of the game and read every word out, and then the song started playing.
That song rips.
Sanctuary.
That song
so
is good,
dude. All of the music. Utada Hikaru, I believe, is the vocalist, and they're all great. Yoko Shimomura's music on that series is fantastic. It's part of the reason I like video game music so much. Like, I think Kingdom Hearts, yeah, it's really hard. You're right. The first one is probably the most challenging in the whole series. 2 is when it kind of becomes an action RPG, like capital A action, and it's a lot more lighter and easier to play. But man, the Kingdom Hearts series is so weird because there's not a lot of video game movie crossover properties that actually do something interesting with that. It's usually just like retelling the movie, or now we're starting to see more of them where, you know, we're getting the Indiana Jones game from Machine Games is actually like, hey, what if we did something with this? Those are the ones that stick out to people, right? Like Chronicles of Riddick is the one that people tend to bring up for like classic video game movie adaptations.
Matrix.
Yeah, exactly.
Matrix,
right? All that kind of stuff. So Kingdom Hearts, man, I could talk about Kingdom Hearts forever, but I won't. All I'll say is I would be shocked if you finish these games. But man, what you're saying about Disney is so poignant, and you put it perfectly. Because I knew nothing about Disney before playing these games. Genuinely, if I was 50-50, I thought, and I hadn't played many of the Final Fantasy games either. Kingdom Hearts was my introduction both to Disney and to Square's video games.
Really?
Wow.
Oh yeah, because I didn't even touch on the fact that there's like a million Final Fantasy characters you're introduced to.
Yeah, like Squall shows up,
Yeah.
or Leonhard, or whatever his fucking
There's a
name is.
crazy from
So
7,
weird.
8, and 10. Like Waka is in the fucking intro. Also, oh my god,
This game is fan fiction.
yeah,
It is. It literally
it's like
is.
professional fan fiction. I have to,
Yes.
Jesse, I have to cut you off for 1 second. Then I want to hear the rest of what you have to say. Just to say that Waka. So Waka is he's the Blitzballer from Final Fantasy X.
Oh my god.
And he's voiced by John DiMaggio, who does Bender and Jake the Dog in Final Fantasy X. And he does kind of like a little bit of like an
And he does Marcus Phoenix in Gears of War as well.
oh shit, I forgot about
That's
that
right,
one.
Yeah.
He does like a little bit of like a like if you were gonna do a racist Jamaican accent.
It's me, Waka.
He does like 10%. He turns the racist Jamaican accent dial up to like 10%, just like a little bit.
Okay.
The accent of Waka in Kingdom Hearts 1 is like an impression of like an African person. It was like cryptically, like it was like a bad weird accent that like it sounded like someone got like a sheet and they're like, yeah, he does like a weird accent, and they just like made, I don't know how to express it. I couldn't. It was like drifting in and out of like Jamaican, and like I don't know. It was baffling to me.
That was John DiMaggio's thing back at that point in time. He would always do black woman, black man voices, all that. And I'm like, dude, you're friends with like multiple black voice actors. What are you fucking doing?
it was very strange. So I just had to call it out because I had to like watch clips of Waka last night and just go down a wormhole.
Bizarre.
That's so funny.
Anyway.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Are you playing HD 1.5?
No.
Or is that the one? Or 2.5?
Just playing
or-
straight up Kingdom Hearts.
Well,
Just
like
Kingdom
PS2
Hearts
emulator?
for the PS2.
Or I mean, real PS2.
Wow.
Yeah, just emulator.
That's crazy because complete happenstance, maybe, or maybe this is how it got on your radar, but the Kingdom Hearts series only came to Steam about 3 weeks ago.
I saw that. Yeah. Maybe that's why it was like in my mind castle or something, as people were talking about Kingdom Hearts again. It was in the zeitgeist. So
Yeah, it came out. I guess they had an Epic Game Store exclusivity deal for like 3 years or something. It wrapped up, so you can buy all of them on Steam, and it has a there. Yeah, so 1, 2, and 3. Actually, let me explain.
What's the
Actually,
full collection called? Because they
I'm
have funny
literally
names for the split.
I have it right here. I'm going to read the whole thing out. That's
Okay.
You're teeing me up perfectly because that's all I want to do. You can buy Kingdom Hearts 1.5 and 2.5 Remix for 31% off at the moment for $34.49. But if you want to buy the whole pack, also 31% off for $68.99. This is the Kingdom Hearts Intergrum Masterpiece, which includes Kingdom Hearts HD 1.5 plus 2.5 Remix, Kingdom Hearts HD 2.8 Final Chapter Prologue, and of course Kingdom Hearts 3 plus Remind DLC.
It's really good DLC.
I have never heard the word Integrum in my entire life.
Did they make it up? I don't think I've heard it either.
It means untouched, entire, whole, complete, uninjured.
Intergrum.
Integrum.
It's a good word. Although that's not an accurate depiction of this masterpiece collection because it doesn't have the rhythm game that they put out.
It has been injured.
2
It's
years
not
ago.
totally Integrum.
That's right. So it's partially Integrum. That's so
Yeah.
funny. I would love for you to play
maybe
all of these.
they
Do a
need
fat
to-
session.
Oh my god.
I was thinking last night when I was playing this game, if I was doing a fat session, I would have been freaking out because like I got to the first boss and I didn't understand the combat well enough. So I died like a lot. I was like, this is like I thought this was a baby game and I'm getting my ass handed to. Like I've been doing the fucking final boss in the Elden Ring DLC and I was like, this will be a breeze.
Has nothing on fighting the fucking red Heart Queen.
I will say that the
Nothing on
camera in Kingdom Hearts 1 is equally frustrating as Erdtree. So yeah, in many ways a predecessor to Souls games, but yeah, it's interesting.
There you go, folks. There's never been a better time to play Kingdom Hearts, especially for those of you who want some Intergrum masterpieces. You know where to go. Jesse, tell me about Leap Year. This is another Steam. It's like a minimalist platformer, or is it a puzzle game? What are we looking at here?
It's somewhere in the middle. Yeah, Leap Year is the latest game from Daniel Linson. I'm getting all the hard names today. It's developed by Daniel and published by Sock Pop Collective.
Oh yeah.
This is like, if I were to describe it, it's sort of like a Newgrounds aesthetic 2D puzzle platformer where you have fall damage. Basically, every jump that you make,
cool.
if you jump straight up, kills you. You die. It's hilarious. It's like a comedy game almost where you're solving puzzles, but the puzzles aren't clearly communicated with like signposting. So it's sort of like a Metroid Brainia in terms of gameplay. I've used that phrase before. It's those games where you're learning information and the rules of the world while you're playing it. There's no manual, there's no signposting. There's a little signposting, but there's no like literal signposts that you read and they're like, if you jump, it does this. Whoa, have you ever played a video game before? It's like all those video essays that are like Mario 1-1 teaches you how to play platformers because you can you jump or you die and you hit the enemy, and that's what this kind of feels like, but more in like a puzzle perspective. So it's a lot of like, because you have this rule where jumping and landing hurts you, you have to be very careful of your jump arc. So if you jump straight up, you die when you land, which is so funny. But if you jump forward and you land like one block below where you would die or one block above, you survive. So it's all about learning the rules of how to mitigate the damage that you take. Because if you get any hit, you die. That's it. One hit, you're gone, and you got to restart the screen. And it's just basically learning the information, learning the rules of the world through play and through curiosity, and like taking the time to consider everything that you know about 2D platformers and figure out if they're real. I think to describe the act of learning something in this game, I'll give away the first sort of puzzle thing. You learn it right away. It's not a hard one. But like one of the rules of platforming, right, is when you jump and you hit the ceiling, you fall back down. Your gravity's given up. But here, when you jump and you hit the ceiling, you hold on to your jump arc. You just don't go any higher. So you use that rule to maneuver through areas. So it's that kind of stuff, right? Where if you just try stuff, like if you're like, how do I get across this? And you just keep throwing ideas at the wall, eventually you'll stick, you learn a new rule, and the shape of the world changes over time. I love this kind of stuff. These kinds of like learning games.
Yeah, and this is like a sock pop game, so it's your typical sort of $5 sort of a technical, or a, what would you call, like almost has the vibe of a game jam game. Like let's try and build a game around this sort of like weird little concept. How long is it, or have you played much of it? Or
yeah, it's only 2 hours long. It's great for $5. It took me maybe 3. You're gonna spend a lot of time if you do check it out. You're gonna spend a ton of time being lost. It's a little like visually confusing. There are some elements where you have to know that there's more to the wall. It's a bit of like observation, because each screen is a fixed space, and then it scrolls when you reach the next part of the screen. But some of those next parts are like there's a hole in the ground that you got to sort of just intuit or infer from the nearby areas. There's a map. I used it. I'm not gonna lie. There's a map in the discussions that people post on Steam, and you can just look at that. If you get stuck, just do it. It's a really fun, interesting idea for a video game, and I think the final sort of like walk to the end is really cool and worth getting to and seeing what it does. So if you get stuck and you check this out, please do not hesitate to use the guides. I think it's such an interesting idea that it's worth seeing it through to the end. Yeah, I really enjoy this. It's nice to play something that's like over, you start it and you're done in the same afternoon. It's not often you get something like that, and it's really strongly made. It's just fun, and the music's really good. I love it.
It's plenty often if you are a member of Sock Pop Collective,
That's
of
true.
course, on Patreon, which you can do for, I think it's $3 a month is their entry. So all those games that they have on Steam, you might notice there's a little icon on a bunch of their thumbnails that has a little pink sock kind of thing on it. Those, I believe, are all the games that end up going up on Patreon, or maybe more of them do, maybe all of them do. I'm not quite sure, but yeah, if you're into those types of like fun little indie diversions, I think we didn't we add them up one time? I feel like we added them up one time. There was just like an absurd amount of games. But yeah, they're also available on patreon.com/sockpop, SOKPOP, if you're interested. Nice one. Is it play on Steam Deck? Have you played it on Steam Deck?
Perfect on Steam Deck. It's not verified for whatever reason, but I had zero issues playing it on Steam Deck. There's no typing. There's no nothing. It's really good. Yeah.
Cool. I'm going to grab that for the flight back then. All right, so that's all the games we had this week. NASCAR Heat 5, Kingdom Hearts, Children of the Sun, Leap Year, and Street Uni X. I think I did those in order of release as well by accident. Oh no, Steam release maybe. We got some emails though as well. Frank, who messaged us this week?
Yeah, we got some emails, and if anyone does want to email us, write to us at podcast@noclip.video. Our first email comes from Brennan. Do you have any preferred small/independent games-written journalism groups you personally prefer or recommend? I feel there are so many, from Steven Totilo's GameFile, Defector, Aftermath, etc., and I'd love everyone's opinion if they subscribe to any independent journalist or if you particularly enjoy anyone's work, etc. Thank you. From Brennan from New Jersey.
I subscribe to Crossplay, which is Patrick Klepek's, what do you call it? Substack or whatever. Which is interesting to me because he talks predominantly about sort of like games within the context of children and family and stuff. And his kids are slightly older than my daughter. So yeah, I that's predominantly what I sort of consume, I guess. And then everything else is fed to me via the algorithm or what I follow on subreddit or whatever, or Twitter.
Yeah, I kind of just pick stuff up by osmosis, by what pops up in front of me. I recently started reading the work of Liz Ryerson, who does some really, really brilliant journalism about games. It's definitely more, it's less like reporting regularly and more kind of like super long think pieces that come out at whatever, like in a regular interval. But if you go to ellaguro.blogspot.com, ELLAGURO.blogspot.com. There's a really fucking good one called Let's Play Life that is incredibly long that I've been making my way through, and I finished it. I think I talked about it on the podcast like a month ago, but incredibly just like thoughtful and kind of like I guess like new journalism is what you call it. Kind of like
about what?
It's about like it's kind of about the history of Let's Plays, but it's also it's more about kind of like using their personal experience as like a prism for reflecting upon like what games used to be like, I guess. It kind of goes a bunch of different places. I kind of want to like leave it a little ambiguous because I think it's like I was shocked that it was where it went. So yeah, just check it out. If you're into like really good, thoughtful games writing, I would say if you're into like Tim Rogers style of YouTube videos, this is kind of in the same family of
Sold
style. Yeah, check it out.
I'm in.
Jesse,
I read Garbage Day. It's a newsletter, great name. That's mostly about internet culture and like what's going on online. It tends to have crossover with video games because the internet is video games. But a lot of it is just interesting to read. Like if you find yourself wishing Twitter was curated and like you only got normal opinions from a person with like a brain in their head. This is the perfect sort of like distillation of all of the controversy.
Reason I use Twitter. I use Twitter for the psychos. I just want to see
fair
the madness. Yeah. But that sounds
Totally
cool. Garbage Day.
Yes, Garbage Day. I also read it's a new one from their Twitter account's Toads Anime, Ryan Brown. It's like an indie games roundup. It's more under the radar kind of stuff. It's not like, you're not gonna see it like the vault. Maybe you will, but it's a lot of just smaller releases. So it's cool to get that sent my way. And then a lot of YouTubers, a lot of like whoever's posting. I like seeing the
that ain't
vids.
Words, Jesse. It doesn't count.
That's fair.
We're not allowed.
If you read the transcript,
Quick
automatic
transcription. I was gonna say.
AI transcript.
Cool. Good suggestion. Frank, you got any?
I'll throw links to all those,
I
by the
feel
way,
like-
in the description.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, I feel like I follow a lot of friends on Twitter or journalists or other developers that will retweet stuff. So I feel like that's how a lot of stuff gets surfaced. Like, I feel like even like Derek Hughes, someone who comes to mind who just like retweets a lot of indie game stuff and just, I don't know, it's just other developers in the scene will retweet and surface like indie game stuff up. Like, the only like game newsletter I read is Jason Schreier has like it's very industry focused, like their Bloomberg piece, but then they'll also post what they're writing, which is usually like some JRPG or something. And then, like I feel like Jeff Gerstmann occasionally will like surface up some indie games. I see their like Patreon podcast posts and stuff too, but honestly, like really, like I feel like Jeremy and Jesse are so on top of it when it comes to like finding all these indie games, and I'm like, okay, I just so I appreciate it, but yeah, I think just social media in general.
I think that's like it's just the nature of written journalism. Like for the past 10 years, if anyone asked me if they had to get into games writing, I would say fucking don't, because the internet is like we have all become lazy. The way in which we consume. It used to be where you had like 50 bookmarks or whatever, or you had websites you went to and all this sort of stuff. And people that you followed, and we just don't anymore. Either we press the follow button on YouTube or Twitter or whatever, or social media, and that's it. Or we subscribe to a particular subreddit. So it's so much harder it's easier in a way to get access to broader stuff, which is good. But yeah, we just don't follow, people that way. And written word almost requires it more than others do, because on a YouTube video, you can make something that is interesting to somebody who doesn't know who you are, but it's very difficult to write stuff that's that way, unless it's just pure news, and then you're writing it for, $1 for 5,000 words, and it's just like, it was a dying job 10 years ago. It's even harder now, and it's just a lot of it has to do with how we all behave and how the internet taught us to make, consume things differently.
Yeah, I was gonna say I feel
the way
like
it is.
my consumption of a lot of like video games think pieces is as like second monitor passive content, where it's like I'm playing Dark Souls and listening to someone be like, here's an hour on the history of like Street Fighter. I feel like writing demands your full attention, and so it really, I have to be like really in the right. Like when I read that Liz Ryerson piece, like I saw an excerpt from it that someone posted and was like, you have to read this, and the excerpt was interesting, so I just sat down and read for a long time, and it's rare that I'm in the headspace where it's like that's what all I want to do right now is I want to sit and read. Usually it's like I just got off work, I edited all day, I want to like play video games, and that's not enough for me, so I also need like Jacob Geller in my ear being like, I think about it a lot.
But that's the thing, is that we now live in the attention economy, and writing requires so much more attention per minute, like that it's fallen back because of that. And that's why podcasts and videos and stuff is because we're all doing so much, and there's only so many hours in a day, and also, quite frankly, it's harder to write than it is to to video editing. Obviously is different because there's a lot of, you can sort of go down the rabbit hole on that one, but it's hard to produce good writing too. Like
it's funny, I think you're not wrong, I agree with you. But also, I know that making video essays is like a multidisciplinary thing, and is obviously way harder than making, like, just writing an article.
Oh yeah. I guess I wasn't, when I'm talking about video, I'm not necessarily talking about video essays.
Oh, okay.
Like that, they're at the peak of the because that also involves writing. That I'm saying like what Jeremy's talking about, like Let's Players or Twitch streamers, or like that is the vast majority of what is consumed online when it comes to games coverage. You know what I mean? Like very few people globally watch any video essays. It's just that it's a passionate group, and there's not that many people doing them. Like there isn't. Like if we named our favorite video essays, we would come up with, if we named 10, 8 of them would be the same people we mentioned.
Yeah, that's fair.
Like, there's not that many. It's a pretty insular group.
There is also, like, the last thing I wanted to say was I do, like, 8 years ago, I kind of didn't see the appeal of Let's Plays at all. And the thing that kind of, like, made me understand them is that, like, the types of documentaries I like are less, Netflixy talking head produced documentaries and more like this dude like spent like 10 years hanging out with this like weird guy in his shack. And it's like, because I feel like there is value for like a talking heads documentary. Like obviously our documentaries, we can't go around just like spending 10 years with developers. It would be insane and it's unsustainable. There is like,
but it's way cooler.
Yeah. It is like cool it's very hard to make those kind of docs, but it is cool when someone's just like sets up the camera for 3 hours every day and just like watches, because then people in front of a camera act a certain way. And I feel like the appeal for me of like a really long Let's Play is that it has that the filter slowly peels off, because it's hard to hide in 8 hours of unbroken footage of being on camera and just playing a game. And eventually it just like gets to this place that feels realer. I mean, some people are natural performers and they can just turn it on for 8 hours or whatever, but the Let's Plays that I like are
you like Let's Plays as like performance art then?
I like it as like, it's something like that. It's like long form improv, but it gets into this very kind of like, eventually you just have to be yourself because you'd run out of material. You can't like write like a tight 8 hours,
Or maybe you were always that person and then the messages come out and we all find out that the mask wasn't real.
Yeah.
That actually it was the same person all along.
Is this a reference perhaps to someone with
not.
a PhD who's not quite nice to others?
PDF. All right.
Yeah,
what did Aaron say to us?
That's
Frank?
right.
Exactly.
Aaron Thiessen wrote, "Since Sekiro Summer's in full swing, I've always found mechanics surrounding the death of the player character very intriguing. Notably, Sekiro allows revivals, and From Software in general will use death thematically and mechanically, hollowing, bloodstains, etc. Are there any other interesting examples of death-based mechanics that are perhaps under-recognized in games, or are there some unexplored aspects you'd like to see around player death in games?"
Remember the first time I played an MMO and I came in contact with the concept of a corpse run? Like, obviously, we know that from games. I find corpse runs to be incredibly funny because because it ends up, and I guess it happens in the From games as well, but it's, for some reason, it's funnier to me in World of Warcraft. Here's an example, right? I soloed a lot of WoW, and when you went in a dungeon that you were like not quite sure if this was too high a level, and maybe someone's already gone ahead of you, so maybe they've killed a bunch of the people who were there at the entrance to the dungeon, and you're going in, and then you get killed by somebody, and you're like, shit, like how am I gonna get back? I don't want to have to do to spawn and take that debuff, like, and then you try and like, because it was all line of sight, like it was all like as the crow flies, you had to be within whatever, like I don't know, fucking 100 World of Warcraft yards of your body to be able to resurrect yourself. So you do stuff like try and find somewhere like outside the dungeon that was close to where your body was, directly, or like try and spawn close enough and then just run out as fast as you can and then die again, but at least now you're closer to the entrance. Like I always thought that whole aspect of games was really funny in MMOs, because up to that point, if you're playing single player games, you just hit reload, whereas like this was like an actual logical issue you had to deal with in MMOs, and I thought it was very silly and funny.
Yeah, that's a good one. I was always a fan of, it's in a few different games. Super Meat Boy is the one that comes to mind, but after you beat, because it's a game where you die a million times, when you beat a level, it shows you all of your deaths in very rapid succession. And it's like, it kind of, because it's so like when you have those deaths in the moment, you're like, fuck, like I've done this like 1,000 times, but then you like see them all in rapid succession, and it's like, it's almost like a little bit of like comedic catharsis where you're like, yeah, I did fucking die. I died a lot here, man. It's like, oh yeah, that buzzsaw got me like 400 times. It just is, it kind of like, it's like the punchline at the end. You just get to like celebrate all the things that frustrated you along the way.
I think we've talked about it before. The Prince of Persia, the first game, Sands of Time, not the first game, the first 3D game, when you die and the narrator's like, no, not quite. I'm actually really cool and didn't die. I'm sorry, I forgot the story.
It's a terrible storyteller.
It's awful. Yeah. And I died. I mean, no, just kidding. I tricked you. You were on the edge of your seat, weren't you? I always found that funny. But the one that I actually think is really cool is Sifu, that like martial arts game. When you die, instead of like restarting the whole level, you come back to life, but you've lost a certain number of years. When you die the first time, it's 1 and then 2 and so on and so forth. So the more you die, the harder the game gets, which forces you almost to go back and redo a level to keep your age low so that your damage is high and you're still fast. I think that's a really cool way of implementing challenge into a game that without like sacrificing, player agency in their death. Like you get something, there's a consequence to it that's not just your time. It's actually like your ability to perform actions and stuff. It's really cool.
Yeah, that's a great mechanical one, for sure. That's really smart. On the thematic side, I always found, and it's funny, when the first Metal Gear Solid came out, they did this, and lots of them have done it since, and not many others have. But like, it's very funny to me that in Metal Gear Solid, when you die, it's like the most tragic thing. Which it makes sense. Like, it's like they're like snake, or like whoever, Campbell comes on or whoever, one of your friends comes on, and they're like no, which like in a way adds a sort of an appropriate level of gravitas to the death of a protagonist in a game that you never really get to see. It usually comes up like you died or game over. It doesn't matter, but like, the folks working on those games, Kojima or whoever was, recognized like, oh no, when like our main character dies, it should be really dramatic. And it's cool that they did that. And it is kind of odd that also no one else has picked up that baton, at least that I can remember.
Yeah, that's a really good point. Because, it's the classic thing in video games is like, oh yeah, you've got like 3 lives left. Like, it's like, that, like death is a concept that is so trivialized by video games as a medium that it is funny to have like, oh no, that guy caught me. And then people are like, oh God, he's dead. Like, he's fucking dead. Like, the contrast is great. That's a good point.
Frank, you got any?
I don't know. I honestly do like when you die and the game gets easier. It's like, okay, you suck. Do you want to put this boss on easy?
Yeah, Nintendo loves doing that. Yeah.
Yeah, it changes from game to game. But like one instance of that is like roguelikes. If you die, it's like, okay, that sucks. But hey, carry this currency. And like a week or 2 ago, I spent so many hours playing Hades. And when you die, it sucks. But then it's like, oh my God, I can't wait to get upgrades. So and then my brain.
Hades. That's one of like thematically you are actually just going home because you live with the god of death, so it makes sense.
It's funny that Zagreus is like, oh shit, I've died again, damn it.
Yeah, every time they come out and comment on it. And then honestly, more games should have fatalities. I think like that's the funniest way of like, all right, yeah, you killed them, but now make it even more embarrassing. And I don't know, I think that's so funny.
The next Mario game should have that. Be funny as hell. Yeah. Bowser just spins you around and crushes your skull.
I feel like for me the fatality, like the psychological fatality for me is when I get fucking the Nintendo like, hey, you're clearly having a little trouble here, you need help. That to me is like, it's like when you as a kid, like if you get bullied and you're like, well, I'm fine, like fuck that guy, and then someone comes up, they're like, hey man, I saw what that guy said to you, that was really fucked up, and you're like, oh God, like someone was like witness to my like tragic moment. When Luigi pops up and he's like, oh, you need like a little help with that jump, I'm like, fuck you, Luigi, like just let me.
Hey, you don't fucking suck.
Just give me a minute. I'll get it eventually. I'm having a hard day.
Speaking of psychological fatality, I forgot Halo 2 and Halo 3.
Oh God, the teabag.
They had proximity chat and teabagging. So someone would kill you and then start teabagging you as the spectator cam hollowed, and then they would start cursing at you. And like that just got you more fired up for when you respawn. Like that, like 5 seconds of gamer rage when you die in like Call of Duty or Halo, and it's like, like if you get camped, it's like, oh my God, I'm gonna come back there and kill that person. So that is the most like you're so fired up to rush to where that corner is, and either are they there or they moved and sniped you again. It's like,
was it in Halo when you died, you heard the other person, or was it they could hear you? Oh, it was just full lobby mic, right?
It was full proximity chat. If you just walked in there,
because Call of Duty, I don't know if it's all of them or if it's just Warzone. When you kill someone, you get their hot mic. That is like the ultimate evolution of
good.
that. That shit is so funny. Every time you kill like a 40-year-old who just got off work for the first time in like 3 days and has an hour to themselves, and you just pop them in the back of the head and they're like, man, I'm not fast enough for this game
Jesse,
anymore.
I'm right here.
I'm sorry. I said 40. You're chilling. You got another year and a half, right? Or something like that.
Oh my God.
Even this generation's been so funny because I feel like maybe now, but like when the PS5 first came out, no one knew that there's a microphone on the thing that's on by default. Every multiplayer game. So when we played Call of Duty like a year or two ago, it was just you would hear someone having a full-on conversation with like their partner, and it was like for like 2 hours, and it's like it's like it's so I love when those moments happen. It happens in Fortnite, Call of Duty.
It's the best because like when you get the kills, you get like you only get a pocket of the conversation for 5 seconds.
Yeah.
So throughout the time of a match, you start and it's like you hear the beginning of them having a conversation, and then 5 minutes later, it's like, what? Why don't you go back? Why don't you go back to Phil? And then like they die and the mic cuts, and it's like what's happening over there?
Nope.
What happened to Phil?
Yeah.
Quick shout out to Deathloop as well. Another game played fast and loose and fun with and I guess to a certain extent Moon Crash, although you are supposed to not die in that, I guess, but like they sort of set that up so it's all about the last run.
Returnal.
Yes, another one, you're right. Roguelikes have a lot to answer for. I feel like they inspired a lot of AAA games into being more interesting with their death mechanics. Great question, Aaron. Thank you so much. All right, that's a podcast. That's 183. On the Noclip side, we have the latest episode of Dear Dwyer went up. That was, which episode was that? That was
Pacific Drive.
It was Pacific Drive. Next one is about EVE Online.
It is, and it's a really good episode. I think the cool thing about that one is if you don't give a shit about EVE Online, like I don't know a goddamn thing about that game, it's a really good episode regardless, because you learn about Iceland, you learn about the structure of the games industry over there and how it's evolved, and you also, like, the two guys you spoke to, I don't remember their names, but they have like really just like good things to say about the industry. They've been a part of it for over 20 years, right? So they just have like this really beautiful way of looking at the way things have advanced. They talk about technology in the episode. I don't know, spoilers for the episode. It's a really good one. You'll enjoy it even if you don't know anything about EVE.
Yeah, it's a good chat. And I talked to Abubakar Salim on Monday all about Zhao and acting and starting up a game studio. And then tragically, I got off my flight yesterday and checked the news, and I guess that Surgeon Studios got rid of a bunch of their staff. So I'll probably have to reach out to get a quote, because it's going to seem really weird, because I talked a lot about setting up the studio, and then a day later there was obviously a bunch of layoffs. So I'll follow up with Abubakar about that. But that episode's coming out. We got one on Warframe as well. There's a bunch in the pipeline. On the doc side, Dredge we tried to maybe get Dredge filmed before I headed out here, but we just couldn't get it done because we had a really exciting thing we filmed last week, which hopefully we'll be able to talk about soon. A really interesting retrospective. As part of it, they also gave us a terabyte and a half of restored footage and like DAT tapes and just insane levels of cool old shit about one of the most beloved games ever made. And I have been pouring through those and finding famous actors who did alternative lines for characters, like all this mad stuff. So that happened to us last week, which sort of knocked everything down the road a little bit. But Dredge is coming soon. Jeremy's Secret multiplayer map doc, let's call it that, is almost done too. Dwarf Fortress is almost done too. So we have a bunch of stuff that's getting done. I'm editing while I'm on the road here, and I'll be back in a couple of weeks as well. So check out all that stuff. Are you guys doing a quick look for Street Uni X this week? Maybe
we could. Anime Expo is this weekend, so I'm out all day tomorrow. But like, if we can, I'd be happy to do one next week for sure. But
cool. So you're gonna film some Anime Expo stuff, right? Some gaming stuff at that.
Yeah. So Yakuza Infinite Wealth is having like a whole Yakuza theme. They have the voice actors and producers and stuff, and then there's always just a ton of game stuff in general at Anime Expo. And so the other big part that I kind of want to film and talk about is like Anime Expo is also insanely overcrowded. So I will get some nightmarish B-roll of people looking miserable. I don't know. I'm kind of
really tickle the COVID gland, the COVID anxiety gland, right? just go for it. I was on a plane yesterday, and the lady behind me could not stop coughing, and I was
Yikes,
like,
dude.
God Almighty, get me off this fucking plane.
I know a handful of people who are someone caught it. I know traveling, another person got it locally. Like it is going up again. So
Yeah, there's definitely a little bump at the moment. Yeah, for sure. I know a couple of people as well. Yeah, our filming last week actually was cancelled because about 3 weeks prior, one of those people was sick. So, yeah, it's still out there. It's thinking about it, and it's thinking about you. But don't worry, it's going to be at Anime Expo this week, so the rest of the country is free. Just don't go to Anime Expo, Frank. Oh, Frank. I mean, have fun at Anime Expo, Frank. Check out all the anime. I watched an anime recently, just to say it quickly, one called Overdrive. It is an anime that is based on Japanese Formula 4. We did it for Shift F1, the F1 podcast that I host with Drew Scanlon and Rob Zachney. It's very, very good. If you like motor racing as well, it's pretty cool. It's called Overdrive with an exclamation point. It's pretty cool.
Okay.
All right.
It's called Overdrive with an exclamation point, not Over Space Drive.
No, is that a different one?
Yeah, there's
that's
one about
a cycling anime, which is like up my alley.
Yeah,
Oh
okay.
my God, really? Wow. Overtake. Sorry, Overtake.
Oh, okay.
Overtake, not Overdrive.
I was like, damn,
Overtake.
I didn't know Danny was watching bicycling anime. All
Okay,
right,
this
good
looks
for you.
sick.
Yeah, it's pretty great. Check out Overtake. Good stuff. All right, that's the podcast. Enjoy the rest of your week, everyone. We'll be back next week for Crewcast 184. Until then, play some video games. Bye.